You've probably seen this before. Cars spinning all over the place, unable to keep stuck to the track. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself, why? Why are these drivers spinning out so easily? Aren't they supposed to be the best in the world?
Champion of the world!
They are at the absolute pinnacle of motorsport, and yet a bit of rain and they can't handle it? Pfft, amateurs, am I right? Meanwhile, your family saloon easily handles any sort of weather, be it rain or sunshine, it troops through it all. Very impressive, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Don't forget, these vehicles are going at insane speeds, so it's a little bit different to your daily car. So how is it that you can troop all the weather but Formula 1 drivers struggle? Well, to find out, we need to investigate. Get your glasses on and your notepads out. Let's take a look at the first part of any race weekend. Formula 1 teams are like a traveling circus, but instead of hauling around animals and tents, they're moving around their cars and equipment. Now imagine doing all that every single week. Well, okay, not every week, but there are some exceptions in the calendar with some slight significant breaks. But my point still stands. And just like any good trip, it's always best to check the weather before you go. Each team looks at the weather forecast in advance, about a week or so before heading there. It's kind of important, you know. From this, they choose whether or not to bring cooling packages alongside all of the other stuff they travel with. And if that wasn't enough, there are also meteorologists who travel around with their super cool weather equipment stuff. Each Monday of a race week, they arrive on the track and put together their equipment for a few days. Once it's all set up and ready to go, they stop to get lunch and call it a day. No, just kidding. Then they relay that information and data to all 10 teams. Wait, hold up. That seems a bit over the top, doesn't it? Why is there so much equipment involved if we get all the weather forecast? Yeah, but how many times have you been fooled into thinking it will be sunny and it ends up raining? Fellow Brits will understand the struggle. The equipment is pinpoint accurate to the circuit and its vicinity, and because of this, it's easier to get a targeted prediction on rain. I mean, you've probably heard the radio calls yourself.
Is more rain coming?
Negative, just this.
There's risk of rain increasing. It would arrive around turn 5 area first.
Latest on the radar is there's a little bit of rain about 5 minutes away.
This is the level of precision you won't find anywhere else. So yeah, Formula 1 is pretty high tech, and they're able to tell the weather before they even set out to start the race. Now, let's talk tarmac. Now that race day is rapidly approaching, it's time for the actual track conditions. If you drive a car on the road, this discussion will be quite familiar to you. But if you're like me, with no license to drive, apart from in games, then I've got you. If it's raining, the track gets wet. And if it's hot and sunny, the track gets hot. That's it. Thank you for coming. That's the end of this video. I wish you all a good night. Okay, let me explain a bit further. The racetrack itself is a greyish colour, but if it gets wet, it sort of looks like a light black, ashy kind of colour instead. So if you haven't kept updated on the weather or all the Formula races before the race, that's how you can quickly tell what conditions they're racing in. Or you could look at the various umbrellas and ponchos, whichever's easier, I guess. Track conditions also vary day by day. What, you thought they only race on one day? No, usually races start using the track from Friday to Sunday. Friday being the practice sessions, Saturday being the qualifying, which determines their starting positions for the race, and then the actual race day on Sunday. Oh, sometimes Thursdays are a part of it too, with sprint races, but we could talk about that some other time. As you can tell then, there's quite a bit of weather to prepare for each race week, and even more concern for keeping their car intact until race day. Sometimes though, they are a bit unlucky.
That does seem to be a lot of standing water. He's in the wall!
The American aquaplaning through Les Combes and hitting the barrier.
So it's no surprise then that racing has some more rules about weather conditions. If a race is deemed too wet to race on, then the race may be delayed or even fully cancelled. Rip to all the people who paid for those tickets. Refunds not available, sorry. But what about if the weather changes midway through the race? Well, that's where the pit stops come in. Imagine this. You've been racing for around an hour, aiming to get your time around the track reduced each lap. And then the rain begins.
There is heavy rain coming in the next couple of minutes.
And now the pit wall has to make decisions based on the data they see. Do we pit? Do we not? How can we undercut or overcut the teams and their drivers? Will the weather clear up before the tires even need to be changed? Will the rain get worse? All of these questions are running through the minds of the people at the pit wall, whose whole job is to look at all the data on their screens. Data on their screens and figure out the best strategy to not just tackle the weather, but also their opponents. But there are also multiple tire options, and each one has a different performance based on the weather, track temperatures, track length, and more. Let's run through them, shall we? First up is the hard compound tire. Pirelli made these bad boys to make Formula 1 a literal snooze fest. They can last longer than 50 laps depending on where they're used, which is basically a whole race on certain tracks. Then we have the mediums, which are literally that, a mid-ground between soft and hard compounds that has about 30 laps to them. Then the softs, which have the lowest durability, sitting around 20 laps or so, but they're generally the quickest tire to have on. But if the weather starts to get wet, then it's time to turn to the intermediates, a balance between a wet and dry tire compound, which is usually suited to the light rain that a track would get, and not whatever happened here.
Yeah, but this is the sort of day where you can drop it on the reconnaissance lap to the grid. And that does seem to be a lot of standing water is in the wall!
If the rain takes a turn for the worst, then it's time for the full wet tires, which have a lot more grooves in them and look more like your standard road tire that you probably have on your car. But we forgot how to use them, and now they're just sleeping in blankets forever. And to make things a little easier, the tires are actually color-coded. Brilliant engineering, that. And if the pit crew chooses the wrong tire compound, it could cost the entire race. Each tire compound has different capabilities and optimum performances. You wouldn't, for example, put a wet tire on if there's no rain. It makes the car slower, and in turn, it means you'll end up nearer to Lance Stroll. Trust me, you don't want to be there. But tires aren't the only thing that needs to be looked out for. You're strapped into a rocket ship. Don't ask me how you got there. It's 40 degrees Celsius. You're wearing 3 layers of fireproof gear and a helmet. The only breeze you feel is through the tiny gap of your visor. Oh, and you can't take any breaks, not even scratching your nose. Welcome to the day in the life of a Formula 1 driver. To help battle the heat, drivers finally received some aid from the FIA. New for 2025, cooling vests which pump chilled fluid through 50 meters of tubing to the driver's torso. It sounds great, right? But it's probably warmer than the milk you forgot to put back in the fridge by turn 12. But at least they have hydration, right? Yes, they have a drinks tube which goes to their helmet and to their mouths. Just one button sends the water right where it needs to be. Well, unless you're Charles Leclerc.
I have the seat full of water, like full of water.
Must be the water.
Classic Ferrari. Drivers can lose up to 4 kilograms in one race. That's like an entire cat. Meanwhile, they're still hitting apexes, avoiding Max Verstappen, overtaking, defending, and putting up with their team radios through an Xbox mic. Yet somehow, they keep going. They don't just drive, they race. So yeah, the weather doesn't just affect the cars, it pushes the drivers to the absolute limit, and sometimes beyond it. So let's go back to that moment. The rain hits, cars spin out, and you wonder, how are the best drivers in the world not handling a bit of water? Turns out, it's not just water, it's pressure, it's physics, it's fatigue, it's tires, tarmac, timing. One wrong move, one wrong call, one rogue cloud, and the whole race can be flipped upside down. These drivers aren't just athletes, they're gladiators fighting through the blazing heat and fighting against all odds to get their cars to the front of the grid, with millions of people around the world watching. So the next time you see a Formula One car spin out, you know the science behind it all, because weather doesn't just make the car spin, it makes the whole race unpredictable. And that's what we all tune in for.